Hello and welcome to Astronomy Daily, your window to the cosmos, where we bring you the latest developments in space exploration and astronomical discoveries. I'm Anna, and today we've got a packed episode with some fascinating stories from around the globe. Coming up, we'll dive into the details of Firefly Aerospace's recent Alpha rocket failure, which unfortunately resulted in a Lockheed Martin satellite crashing into the Pacific Ocean. We'll also explore New Zealand's surprising announcement about establishing a new space squadron, signaling their increasing commitment to space-based defense. In addition, we'll cover China's Shenzhou 19's spacecraft, which has successfully returned to Earth after its crew completed their mission aboard the Tiangong space station. We'll also look at the busy launch schedule for this week, including multiple Starlink missions from SpaceX and the successful deployment of ESA's biomass satellite. And finally, we'll tell you about an intriguing new podcast series focused on Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, which promises to reveal the personal struggles behind the famous astronaut's public persona. So sit back, look up, and let's journey through today's space news together. In a significant setback for the commercial space industry, Firefly Aerospace's Alpha rocket experienced a critical failure during its sixth flight on Tuesday. The incident occurred approximately 2 minutes after liftoff from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, when the engine nozzle on Alpha's upper stage broke off in space. The dramatic moment happened just after the rocket attempted to separate from its core booster as designed. According to Firefly, this malfunction substantially reduced the engine's thrust, although the rocket continued to function longer than you might expect in such circumstances. Unlike typical rocket failures that result in immediate explosions or automatic shutdown sequences, the Alpha's upper stage continued firing for several minutes. The rocket actually managed to reach an altitude of about 320 kilometers or 200 miles. However, it failed to achieve the velocity needed to maintain orbit and was eventually pulled back into Earth's atmosphere by gravity. Live stream footage of the flight revealed several pieces of debris visibly breaking off from the rocket during its ascent. In what's often a telltale sign of trouble during rocket launches, the on-screen altitude and speed data disappeared from the broadcast earlier than expected. Firefly later confirmed that both the upper stage and its payload, a Lockheed Martin satellite called the LM-400 technology demonstrator, safely impacted the Pacific Ocean in a cleared zone north of Antarctica. This controlled ocean landing, while not the intended outcome, at least prevented any potential hazards from debris falling over populated areas. This mission held particular significance as it was the first launch under an ambitious agreement between Firefly and Lockheed Martin that could have included up to 25 flights through 2029. The satellite itself was self-funded by Lockheed Martin and designed to test technologies intended for future military and civilian applications. Despite the failure, Lockheed Martin maintained a positive outlook, with a spokesperson noting that navigating risk and going fast are part of these self-funded demonstrations. They added that insights gained during the satellite's production will still benefit future customers. This latest incident brings Firefly's success rate to a concerning level: 4 failures out of 6 Alpha flights since 2021. The company's journey has been tumultuous, to say the least. Founded in 2014, Firefly filed for bankruptcy in 2017, underwent an ownership change due to U.S. national security concerns in 2022, and faced leadership turmoil when its CEO was ousted in 2024 following an inappropriate relationship. Despite these challenges, the company achieved a remarkable success just 1 month ago with a breakthrough moon landing. Firefly is one of several smaller aerospace companies competing to establish themselves in a launch market dominated by SpaceX. In the wake of Tuesday's failure, Firefly announced it's working closely with Lockheed Martin, the U.S. Space Force, and the Federal Aviation Administration to determine the root cause of the mishap and prevent similar incidents in future launches. In a noteworthy development for our Southern Hemisphere neighbors, the New Zealand Air Force has announced plans to establish a dedicated space squadron. What makes this particularly interesting is the squadron's modest size. Just 15 personnel will staff this new military space unit, making it one of the smallest specialized space units among nations with military space programs. This move signals New Zealand's growing commitment to space-based defense and international security initiatives, despite the relatively small footprint. Military experts suggest that even with limited personnel, the Squadron could play a significant role in space situational awareness, satellite communications, and coordination with allied space forces. New Zealand's strategic position in the South Pacific makes it an ideal location for certain types of space monitoring and operations that complement the capabilities of larger allies like Australia and the United States. The country has already been developing its commercial space sector, with Rocket Lab's launch facilities on the Mahia Peninsula establishing New Zealand as one of the few nations with orbital launch capabilities. A senior military official indicated that while small in size, the Space Squadron represents a meaningful evolution in New Zealand's defense posture, acknowledging the increasing importance of space as a domain for national security. The squadron is expected to focus on developing expertise in space domain awareness, tracking potential threats to satellites, and supporting multinational space operations. This development comes at a time when many nations are reassessing their military space capabilities in response to growing concerns about the vulnerability of space-based assets that support critical infrastructure, communications, and navigation systems. For New Zealand, which has traditionally maintained modest defense forces, establishing a dedicated space squadron represents a significant strategic shift that aligns with broader trends in modern military planning. The timeline for the squadron's full operational capability has not been publicly disclosed, but defense analysts expect it will integrate closely with New Zealand's existing intelligence and communications infrastructure to maximize its effectiveness despite its limited size. And we can chalk up another successful mission today. China's Shenzhou 19 crewed spacecraft has successfully touched down in northern China, marking the end of a mission that began back in October of last year. The landing, which was originally scheduled for Tuesday, was delayed by a day due to unfavorable weather conditions at the landing site. The spacecraft carried a crew of 3 Chinese astronauts who had spent nearly 6 months aboard China's Tiangong space station. The team consisted of 2 male astronauts, ages 48 and 34, along with China's 3rd female astronaut, who is 35 years old. For the 2 younger crew members, this mission represented their first journey into space. All 3 astronauts are members of China's military air force, highlighting the close connection between China's space program and its military capabilities. During their extended stay on the space station, the crew conducted a series of scientific experiments, with a particular focus on technologies related to potential human habitats beyond Earth. One of the most intriguing experiments involved testing bricks made from simulated lunar soil in the space environment. This research could prove crucial for China's ambitious lunar plans, as these materials might eventually be used in the construction of a permanent research station on the moon. China has stated its intention to establish such a lunar base by 2035, and successful materials testing represents an important step toward that goal. The Shenzhou 19 mission is part of China's regular rotation of crews to the Tiangong space station, which was officially completed in November 2022. These missions typically involve 3 astronauts at a time, with 6-month deployment periods and brief overlap periods during crew transitions, allowing for proper handover of station operations. China's rapidly advancing space program has become a point of national pride for the country, and a source of concern for some international observers, particularly the United States. The Chinese Space Agency has been making remarkable progress in recent years, with increasingly ambitious goals including a crewed lunar landing targeted for 2030. The safe return of the Shenzhou 19 crew underscores China's growing capabilities in human spaceflight operations. With each successful mission, China strengthens its position as one of the world's major spacefaring nations, establishing itself as a significant player in what many are calling the second space race. Time to take a look at this week's launch roster. SpaceX's launch cadence continues to break records, with the company having already completed 50 launches in 2025 alone. This milestone includes their 250th dedicated Starlink mission, which they celebrated just last week. A remarkable achievement for a program that began just a few years ago. As of the beginning of this week, SpaceX has launched a total of 8,367 Starlink satellites into orbit. Of these, 1,103 have re-entered Earth's atmosphere, leaving 7,264 still in orbit. This impressive constellation includes 600 direct-to-cell satellites, with approximately 400 currently providing active service to users on the ground. The most recent addition to the Starlink fleet took place on Monday, when a Falcon 9 rocket carrying Starlink Group 1210 lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission launched at 10:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, delivering a mixed payload of V2 mini satellites and direct-to-cell satellites into low Earth orbit. This particular mission is believed to have used booster B1094 on its maiden flight, though SpaceX has not officially confirmed this. Following a southeasterly trajectory, the rocket placed its payload into an orbit inclined 43 degrees at a nominal altitude of 559 kilometers. After stage separation, the booster made a successful landing on SpaceX's autonomous drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, which was stationed in the Atlantic Ocean north of the Bahamas. Looking ahead, SpaceX has an ambitious launch schedule for the remainder of the week, with up to 4 more Starlink missions planned from both Florida and California. These include Starlink Group 675 launching from Cape Canaveral, Starlink Group 15-3 from Vandenberg Space Force Base, and 2 additional missions, Starlink Group 684 and Starlink Group 693, both launching from Florida on Sunday alone. If all these launches proceed as planned, SpaceX will have conducted 54 missions by the end of this week, putting the company on track to potentially double last year's already impressive launch total. The rapid expansion of the Starlink constellation reflects SpaceX's commitment to building a global broadband internet network capable of reaching even the most remote locations on Earth, while the reusability of their Falcon 9 boosters continues to revolutionize the economics of space access. In other launch news, the European Space Agency successfully deployed its newest Earth observation satellite this week. On Tuesday, the first Vega C rocket of 2025 lifted off from the Guiana Space Center in Kourou, French Guiana at 0915 UTC. The rocket carried the highly anticipated biomass satellite, which represents a significant advancement in environmental monitoring technology. Biomass is the 7th in ESA's Earth Explorer mission series and weighs in at 1,170 kilograms. What makes this satellite truly groundbreaking is that it carries the first satellite-mounted P-band synthetic aperture radar ever deployed in orbit. This specialized radar operates at longer wavelengths than previous systems, allowing its signals to penetrate through dense forest canopies rather than simply bouncing off the top. This capability will enable scientists to measure not just the surface area of forests, but also their three-dimensional structure and biomass density. Since biomass serves as a direct proxy for stored carbon, this data will be invaluable for climate research, helping scientists better understand the role forests play in the carbon cycle. Beyond forest monitoring, the biomass satellite has several additional applications. It will map subsurface geology in desert regions, analyze the internal structure of ice sheets, and even generate detailed topographical maps of forest floors, all capabilities that were previously impossible from space. The satellite features an impressive 12-meter diameter fine mesh reflector supported by a 7.5-meter-long boom. This delicate structure must be deployed carefully once in orbit, with the reflector unfurling through an umbrella-like mechanism in a process that takes about 20 minutes. However, this can only happen after the boom is fully extended, a meticulous operation that requires 3 days to complete as each segment extends sequentially. The Vega C rocket that carried biomass to its 660-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit is itself an upgraded version of the original Vega launcher. It features larger first and second stages, upgrades to the third and fourth stages, and a wider payload fairing. The rocket's first stage is powered by a P120C solid rocket motor, the same booster that will be used on the new Ariane 6 rocket, creating cost-saving commonality across Arianespace's launch fleet. The biomass mission is expected to operate for at least 5 years, providing critical data that will enhance our understanding of Earth's forests and their role in regulating our planet's climate. Finally today, space enthusiasts and history buffs will soon have a new podcast to add to their listening queue. A dramatic new audio series titled Buzz is set to launch on May 6th, featuring acclaimed actor John Lithgow portraying Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin. While most of us know the story of Aldrin as the second man to walk on the moon alongside Neil Armstrong, this podcast promises to delve much deeper. As Lithgow narrates in the trailer, that's the story you think you know. This is the story you don't. Written by Stephen Cronish, known for his work on the television series 24, the podcast is described as a riveting human drama that examines both the Apollo 11 mission and the personal struggles Aldrin faced throughout his life. The series will explore how Aldrin confronted his own frailties, overcame generational demons, worked to repair fractured relationships, and ultimately triumphed over addiction. The production features an impressive cast, with Lithgow portraying Aldrin in his later years and Jeffrey Arend playing the astronaut during the Apollo 11 era. Director John Scott Dryden highlighted that the podcast puts listeners at the heart of the action in what he calls an immersive space drama in audio. While Aldrin himself, now 95, wasn't directly involved in the production, the series draws from the extensive writings and interviews he's given over the years. Through 4 published memoirs between 1973 and 2016, Aldrin has been remarkably candid about the immense pressure from his parents, his complex relationships with fellow astronauts, his failed marriages, and his battle with alcoholism. The podcast aims to reveal a more complete picture of Aldrin's story, not just celebrating him for his historic moonwalk, but for the perhaps more difficult journey he undertook after returning to Earth. As Lithgow explains in the trailer, Aldrin became a true hero, not because he conquers space, but because he conquers himself. Buzz represents a collaboration between iHeart Podcasts and Thoroughbred Studios, with production by Goldhawk Productions. The series is part of a broader initiative to reimagine significant moments in American history through high-quality audio storytelling. And that brings us to the end of another action-packed episode of Astronomy Daily. What a week in space it's been. From the unfortunate failure of Firefly's Alpha rocket, sending Lockheed Martin's satellite into the Pacific instead of orbit, to New Zealand's modest but significant step into military space operations with their new 15-person squadron. We've tracked China's Shenzhou 19's spacecraft and its crew, safely returning to Earth after their 6-month mission aboard the Tiangong space station, where they've been conducting fascinating experiments, including testing those lunar soil bricks that could one day help build humanity's first moon base. SpaceX continues its relentless pace with multiple Starlink launches planned this week alone, adding to the more than 7,000 satellites already in orbit. And of course, the successful launch of ESA's groundbreaking biomass satellite, which will give us unprecedented insights into our planet's forests and carbon storage. I'm particularly looking forward to that new Buzz podcast about Aldrin. It's always fascinating to look beyond the iconic moments in space history and understand the very human stories behind them. Thanks so much for joining me today on Astronomy Daily. I'm Anna, and I'll be back soon with more stories from beyond our atmosphere. In the meantime, why not visit us at astronomydaily.io, where you can sign up for our free daily newsletter, catch up on all the latest space and astronomy news with our constantly updating newsfeed, and listen to all our back episodes whenever the cosmic curiosity strikes you. Until next time, keep looking up.